my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. I have a text that I share with my families, my congregation in Marlton, from this very pulpit from my own parents. This echoes through the eons. This is the words that I'll offer you in translation from Ben Sirach, who understood the quality of life and the reality of closure. And he wrote, "We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead. Hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than lingering illness. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good name, a good reputation, endures forever." I enjoyed watching the collage of all the pictures. Happy and expanding clan as time progressed. It was a pleasure to see. Also good to know that you've had opportunities to share each other's joy and not just sadness, like a day like today. Expressing that spectrum of belief and feeling, I read from the book of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And indeed, it is a time to share, to speak, to reminisce, to enjoy the nostalgia. And I'm honored to call first on joy.
I'm Joy Solomonzada. I was Aunt Bernice's niece. I am Aunt Bernice's niece, not I was. And reading on behalf of my sister who is in California, Janet, and my sister Aviva who is here. A week ago I had an aunt who was like a second mother to me. There are so many stories about Aunt Bernice because she was a wonderful, great, generous, thoughtful, and very funny lady. She had a great sense of humor and always liked to make people laugh. Aunt Bernice was kind and open-hearted. At 101, it was amazing how much she remembered and how she could still kibitz with people. For her 101st birthday, when the county official presented her with a plaque, she asked him if he could reduce her taxes. Do you remember that, John? Aunt Bernice opened her home to me as a teenager and allowed me to spend every weekend at her home. When I met my husband at 20 and decided to stay in London against my parents' wishes, Aunt Bernice was very supportive. When Janet wanted to give my parents a 25th wedding anniversary party, the first person she called was Aunt Bernice. Aunt Bernice agreed to help and host the party. She magnanimously allowed Janet to invite as many people as she wanted to her home. They threw a fantastic party, and I came in from London and surprised everyone. Janet remembered that Aunt Bernice and our mom, Irene, cruised through the Panama Canal together. They took many trips together. Immediately upon returning to Florida, our mom complained about chest pain, but she thought that she had indigestion. So Aunt Bernice tried to call an ambulance, but our mom refused to go by ambulance and made Aunt Bernice drive her to the ER. She got our mom to the hospital just in time for a successful quadruple bypass surgery. Then Aunt Bernice took care of her for several weeks while she recuperated. I tried to reciprocate Aunt Bernice's hospitality by hosting an annual pool party, which she loved. We were lucky to be able to celebrate her 100th birthday at the pool party at my daughter Mina and Griff's home last year. Aviva wrote some lessons that she learned from Aunt Bernice. Choose to continue to find purpose in life by doing things for others. Continue to find love even when you've lost love. Open your heart to another person. Support the members of your family by reaching out. Tell stories and make people laugh. Aunt Bernice was one of a kind, and she will be sorely missed. She will be forever in our hearts and minds. Visits to the shore will not be the same without her sitting in her chair and telling stories. We love you, Aunt Bernice. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Next, I call on Harry, grandson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bubby's grandson. I was fortunate to stand up here and read something for my pop-pop as well. So, you know, I'm honored to be up here and do this for Bubby. I wrote something 26 years ago, was an autobiography that Bubby played a big part of. One of the chapters I wrote about my favorite relative. So I'd like to just read that to everyone today. Bear with me here. My grandmother Bubby is my favorite relative. She lives in Florida, 6 months, and in Ventnor 6 months. We share the love of shopping. We love to go to flea markets and garage sales to look for tchotchkes, which are knickknacks. I like looking for old Transformer collectibles, and Bubby's open to anything. She finds the greatest stuff. She loves to bargain with people and get the best price. I like that too. She's a great person to learn from. I also love to sit with her and my sister to listen to her old stories about my mother, her sister, and brothers. Bubby has a great way of telling stories and making them feel very exciting. She makes me laugh and sometimes cry when she tells me some of the sad stories about her family. Her brother and 2 sisters died young. She gets sad talking about it, but we still like to share these stories too. We have great fun in Ventnor. She lives 1 block from the beach. This year she let us go down to the beach by ourselves. There's a lifeguard right at the end of the block, so she doesn't worry too much. She gives us a lot of freedom. We can go to Wawa, the block next door over, and get ice cream at the store at the end of the block ourselves as well. She trusts us with money, and we don't disappoint her. There are rules at Bubby's house. I do not mind following most of them. I can't eat or run in the living room, slam doors or run up and down the steps. I can help clean in the kitchen, prepare dinner, and clean up after myself. I don't mind doing chores at Bubby's house, but at home, I don't enjoy it. Bubby will sit and let us play cards for hours. We get to bet with pretzels, and Bubby is a card shark, but she lets us win sometimes. This winter break, we are going to Florida to visit her. We'll go to the beach, eat out, and go to as many flea markets as possible. There is a great one in Sunrise, Florida, that even has an indoor circus. They have great bargains, and we walk around for hours looking at people's stuff and trying to buy as much as we can for as little as we can. Bubby has many friends who are as nice to us and don't pinch our cheeks. We're grateful for that. This year, Bubby lost Pop-Pop. Pop-Pop was my grandfather. He was sick for a while, and his body finally gave out. It was very sad. We all miss him. Bubby misses him the most. Sometimes we just go over and give Bubby some hugs because we can tell she misses him a lot. Pop-Pop was a good man who spent time with his sister and with my sister and me. Bubby and Pop-Pop loved to go to the casinos. Pop-Pop had blackjack on his computer, and we would play it with him. One of my favorite memories is when my grandparents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. They took my parents, Nina, all my aunts and uncles and cousins to a resort in the Poconos called Tanament. We stayed in the hotel, and all of our meals were included. I ate until I couldn't fit anything else in my stomach. The hotel had lots of sports equipment, boats, and indoor and outdoor pools, and even a hot tub that I was not allowed to go in because they said I was too young. That stunk. It was the greatest time I ever had. Being with some of my favorite cousins and grandparents is a memory I will never forget. Last year, my cousin David and I stayed with Bubby for a week by ourselves. We took walks on the boardwalk and had dinner at a Chinese buffet. She never told me not to eat too much or to slow down. Bubby has a great sense of humor, tolerates bad habits, and knows how to kick back, relax, and have a good time. I sure am looking forward to my trip to Florida. A lot of the things that I said in here are a lot of memories I think people got to share with Bubby too. She was very special to me. She made a really big impact on me growing up. You know, always be good to my family. Remember to keep them close and to always work hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. As he mentioned about pinching cheeks, I imagine it was a time well before many of you grew the variety of beards that I see here. I next call on Daniel Becker, Max's son, to please join us. Please introduce yourself.
So, as mentioned, Daniel is Max's son, who was Bernice's loving companion for many years. And I am the daughter-in-law, Wendy. Only for Bernice would I stand up in front of a group of people and speak. I can remember the first time we met Bernice. Dad had met this amazing woman at his bereavement group. She had impulsively invited him down to her house at the shore in Ventnor, but felt uncomfortable without a chaperone. I don't know what we were expecting, perhaps a quiet, shrinking Violet, but we were totally unprepared for Bernice. She was warm, funny, down to earth, and completely shocked by the amount of baby paraphernalia we had brought to her home. I knew that Bernice was good for Dad, but I hadn't realized how good she was going to be for my entire family. Over the years of our visits to the beach house, she kept our children entertained, well-fed from soups and meals made out of any and everything in her well-stocked refrigerator, and out of our hair in the evenings when we felt the urge to sneak to the casinos. With both Dan's and my mother deceased, she became the closest thing to a Bubby the boys had, including threatening to make Tootsie Stew and telling them and us fascinating stories of what it was like growing up in Philly and working in a store before refrigeration. During the day, it was the beach. In the evening, it was Mentos. Later, when they finally fell asleep, Bernice and I spent endless hours playing Team Gin Rummy and whooping the boys, prompting their famous war cry,
Revenge!
In the winters, it was their home in Florida. Endless hours of the boys running from the indoor to the outdoor pool, lunches at the club restaurant, and more cards and board games. When Hurricane Sandy blew through New York, the boys ran up and down 15 flights of stairs, making sure Dad and Bernice had everything they needed, and ended up playing word games and making up silly limericks, which were Dad's specialty. I lost track of the number of heart-to-heart talks I had with Bernice, whose common sense wisdom kept me on an even keel and kept our men out of the doghouse. I know, too, that Dad and Bernice had a wonderful 20 years together. They traveled extensively, including a cruise, made a home together, and went horseback riding at Dad's 80th birthday weekend. They loved and cared for each other until they could no longer care for themselves. Dad's life was moving into yet another phase due to his failing eyesight. Long after Bernice and Dad separated physically, she was still a force in our family. She and Dad continued to speak on the phone, and we kept bringing him down to the shore every summer until traveling became too difficult. Even when Dad's increasing dementia made it impossible for them to communicate, she continued to check in with us to see how he and we were doing. I know that if Dad were able, he would have been heartbroken to lose her, but happy for the memories of years of love and laughter together. On behalf of all the Beckers and the Gillers, we are honored to be here to celebrate a life well lived.
And now, Nils, another grandson, and another beard.
It is no surprise to many of you, but Bubby was a great storyteller. But you may not have known that Bubby was just as good, if not better, at listening. Whether it was what you did on vacation, how things were at school, just what's new with you at work, she was always ready to hear about it. And when you needed to talk to her about something less than happy, she was still there to lend an ear. In those moments, she gave you advice. I'll admit, it was not always the easiest thing to hear, but she was speaking from a place of love and honesty. She did it for her entire family and everyone she welcomed into her life. That nugget of wisdom was there to help us learn from the situation and grow into a better person. As my wife reminded me, because she's joined this family, whether she was your grandmother or not, she was everyone's Bubby. I know that because of that support, we can all agree that she has shaped us into the people that we are today. I'll miss you, Bubby.
Daniel Matz, another grandson.
When trying to write a eulogy for somebody like Bubby, it's difficult to know where to begin or how to summarize the impact of what she's meant in my life, and I believe all of our lives, into a small speech. As a child, I thought of Bubby and Pop-Up as fun hosts of a home on the coast that I loved to visit and be with family and enjoy days on the beach and at the ocean. As I grew older, my conversations with Bubby and family deepened to understand more fully who Bubby was, what she had gone through, and the extent that she has influenced the people in the world around me. I came to understand that despite the light that Bubby had shone on the world around her, she did not have an easy life and sacrificed deeply to make the life I often take for granted. On my last visit to see Bubby 2 weeks ago, I was fortunate to be able to express my gratitude for who she was in my life. But the time I saw her light up the most with joy was when I let her know her 4 children were 4 of the things I was the most thankful for in my life. To celebrate Bubby's life and legacy, I'd like to celebrate Bubby's greatest achievement, the 4 treasures she has bestowed on the world, and highlight 4 attributes of Bubby that have been exemplified with my relationships with them. When sharing the idea for this format with my girlfriend, soon-to-be fiance, she's not here today, unfortunately, Laura, she shared with me the Hebrew phrase, El Dor Vador, from generation to generation. I don't mean to take from Bubby's memory by spending time talking about her children, but only to emphasize that I experience her through you and through my family in general. 1, Bubby was a wise sage. Bubby never ceased to impress us with her incredible memory of the events in her century of life, filling in new and important details for me of both difficult and joyous experience she has been through. Even in my final visits to her, no matter how much I thought I heard what there was to hear, there were always new details emerging. It was never just stories Bubby was telling us. She was giving us lessons on how to live by how she told her stories. Bubby is a philosophical person who reflected back to us with loving kindness, understanding, and a sense of humor. She had the gift to ask questions and listen to us what was happening in our lives, and then draw on her vast experience to craft words in the form of stories and jokes to guide us and cheer us up. Uncle John, I am deeply grateful for this virtue in you. You not only create beautiful memories with art and your hands, but you've influenced me with your words that I can remember from the time that I was a child and throughout my life that has influenced my thinking and decisions and helped me develop into the person I am. In this way, you remind me of Bubby. Bubby was a woman of action. Bubby didn't just tell stories and give good advice. Bubby was always acting in ways to improve the lives of the people around her. She visited us, called us, cooked for us, gave us gifts, and contributed to our success in any way she felt she could help. She cared deeply about the people around her, making it, and being successful. For many years, she maintained a home in Ventnor that was always open to all of us as a refuge and a getaway. During my life and throughout my dad's career, I can remember every year he took 2 weeks of vacation, one for his annual ski trip in the winter, and one with our family to visit Bubby and Pop-Up, and eventually Bubby and Max, and Bubby every summer. Bubby and Ray. But while most of us spent the trip on vacation, my dad was working through a list of repairs needed for the house. This labor was never looked at as a miserable chore for my dad, but instead he made it seem like a joy to be able to be helpful. On the phone recently, my dad told me he always tried to lead by example. In this way, you remind me of Bubby. Bubby was a gracious host. It's impossible to think of Bubby without thinking of family. I am Bubby's youngest grandchild and the youngest in the family on both sides of my family. I always grew up surrounded by family, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. It always felt so natural and easy for me to be a part of a big family. Something to this day I count among my greatest blessings and gifts in my life. But as an adult, especially in more recent years, I've come to understand that the only thing natural and easy about this is the love we all feel for each other. It's taken a lot of hard work and effort for many in our family over the years to create the opportunities for our families to know each other and form supportive bond we have for each other. Bubby's grandkids are spread out all over the country: Colorado, California, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. And our family extends really all over the world. I'm not sure what the future looks like as this generation supplants the next generation, but I am optimistic. When I think of being with family, I think of many things, but I think of Seders and Rosh Hashanahs we've all celebrated together with Aunt Ruth's family over the years. I also want to just also say I also think of Joy and Reza and Mina and Griff's family and Layla and just all the pool parties and all times I was able to see and spend time with Bubby. And you know, it's difficult to lose you know, the iconic figures in our family like Reza. And, you know, now it's difficult to lose another iconic figure, Bubby. And, but I want to say Bubby was always warm, kind, easy to be around, and had a great sense of humor. And in this way, Aunt Ruth, you remind me of Bubby. Bubby was a compassionate caregiver. Bubby married a man who loved her intensely and showed her in ways that only Pop-Pop was capable of doing. He helped her conceive four of her greatest miracles and her greatest work. Pop-Pop also had a difficult childhood and carried that with her into the relationship and parenting, as I learned later. And it is in this way that Bubby shined the brightest, showing unconditional love to both her husband and her children. I hear stories of the sacrifices she made raising 4 children and caring for Pop-Pop after a stroke. Aunt Ray, you've spent decades in a career caring for others and spent the final years of Bubby's life as her primary caretaker. You've sacrificed so much of your life for the health, well-being, and betterment of others, especially Bubby, and in this way you remind me of Bubby. And I mean, that's what I've written. I just also want to say, you know, I had a nightmare the night Bubby died, just of like our family kind of falling apart. I guess it's actually kind of a surreal, kind of a ridiculous fear to have, but I'm grateful for the family that's still here, and just really want to, like, kind of in Bubby's honor, just make sure we all continue like the tradition and like what she's given us, and continue to be here for each other. Thank you.
And now, her friend Karen.
Bernice was a friend and a consort, but more importantly, she was a mom. She was everybody's mom. Didn't matter how old you were, didn't matter where you came from, Bernice took you in. She took that position very seriously. Even if you didn't really want to hear what she wanted to say, she was going to tell you anyway. And she woke up a couple of weeks ago when we had already said our goodbyes, and she called me up, and she had to reiterate what she told me 100 times before about how I should run things with my own children. And I'll tell you, I'll never, ever stop thinking about Bernice's ways. She was a wonderful woman for everybody. Thank you.
Our granddaughter, Sarah. I'm sorry, I didn't call both of you.
It's okay, you didn't know. We decided 2 seconds ago.
Mind wherever you are.
Nina decided to come up here with me because although I'm usually a very good public speaker, I am John Matz's daughter. So we all know I'm going to cry a little bit. In thinking about how to celebrate my bubby's life, I've been thinking a lot about the word legacy and how people who leave us impact us after they're gone. Everyone here has their own memories of Bubby, moments, big and small, where my grandmother touched their lives. I knew my Bubby very differently than a lot of my other cousins. I grew up in Ohio, very far away from most of the family. And we would come out in the summers for a couple of weeks or maybe a week at a time. But I didn't grow up around a lot of extended family. I remember coming out and boogie boarding with my cousins at the beach, even though they all thought I was the strange kid from Ohio, and eating tomato and onion salads that Aunt Becky made, squeezed around Bubby's dining room table that had no business fitting 10 people at it. I remember the feeling of standing barefoot in her kitchen and smelling like sunscreen and sand after a long day at the beach, sleeping in those hot rooms upstairs before there was air conditioning, at least in the house, not in general. As I grew older, going down there meant getting to hang out with my cousins and getting to know them. And you never knew who was going to be there. You would just go, and you knew there would be family there. Sometimes there were so many people we would push beds together and sleep 3 of us across 2 twin beds, or people would sleep on the floor. And, and even after that, as we got older, going out in Atlantic City with our cousins and knowing that no matter how late we got home, we would be expected to be up by 9:30 to eat a bagel, and then she would shove us out of the house and say, "Go to the beach, it's a beautiful day." Even though we all had homes, Bubby gave us all a family home. And it was a place to be with our whole family without planning and just hang out. Without that, I wouldn't have the family I have. I wouldn't have 2 aunts who are my East Coast moms, and I wouldn't have gotten to know Becky and Albert in the way that I did. I wouldn't have gone to college where I did because I ended up following my cousin Jay to college. And I wouldn't have had all these wonderful cousins, whether first, second, or third, who've shown up for me at various places in my life when I needed it, and vice versa. My Bubby taught all of us how to be part of a family in ways that are big and small. And as kids growing up, she taught us some of these lessons explicitly. Never show up at somebody's house empty-handed. Always make sure you offer to help with the dishes. And make sure you keep your room clean if you're staying at someone's house as a guest. But she also, as some people have talked about, also taught us through her stories. And one of the biggest lessons I learned through Bubby's stories of losing people and having fractions in her family is that you always show up for family, no matter what. And she was there for everyone around her, and she taught us to be there for everyone around us. Our aunts, our uncles, our first cousins, our second cousins, the people at the family parties that you're not actually even sure how they're related to you, but they're there every year, so you know they're family. As I got older, and I live in New York, I went to law school in New York. I started a law firm, and Bubby would always tell me she was really proud of me, and she would say, "I'm proud of you because you did this on your own." But she wasn't right about that. I did it because I knew I could leap, because it wasn't just that the net would appear. The net was already there. So, Bubby, you can rest in peace because you taught us well, and I'll take care of Dad, and I will always help with the dishes, and I will show up even when it's hard, and you taught all of us to be there for each other, and she'll always be in my heart.
There's a phrase in Hebrew, Acharon, Acharon, Chabiv, hardly last but not least, but it means the one who is beloved. And as our concluding speaker, I'm honored to call on John.
I think I'm going to have to wipe my eyes a little bit so I could see this. A number of years ago, I got a call from my mom. It happened that after my Aunt Irene passed away, her daughters had put together a beautiful book called Goodnight Irene. My mom was so excited about that. She thought it was beautiful, but being the Jewish mother that she was pretty sure that nobody would do anything like that for her. And speaking to my siblings, we realized that each of us had gotten that call. We decided that rather than wait for today, when she was gone, we would do it while she was alive so she would know. I was honored to write the foreword for that book. And I thought now might be a good time to share part of that with you. We go through our lives not always knowing how often we really did get it right, when those words of encouragement, sympathy, or just a touch made a difference in someone's life. We know that in hard times we can never do enough to make things better for those we love. And because of this, we sometimes feel inadequate. The author Richard Bach said, "It's like in the end, there's this surprise quiz. Am I proud of me? I gave my life to become the person that I am right now. Was it all worth what I paid?" Mom, the only one who can answer that question for you is you. This book is a way for all of us to confirm and applaud the impact for good you have made not only on each of us, but on the world. So much of your life has consisted of being there, giving to others. You give love to all you touch. Your stories and humor bring learning and laughter. Your kindness and ability to forgive model that for others. We make this book as a thank you, a celebration, and as a reminder that you truly are a woman of substance. That was 13 years ago, and we were lucky enough to have her with us for that 13 years. Thank you. The book's on a table somewhere, and I hope you'll take a look at it. Thank you. Oh. Thanks.
A couple of days ago, Ray sent me 2 emotional videos. The first was at her birthday party, or the day before her 101st birthday. You placed a sash on her. People celebrated her birthday, and she got up to speak. Aware, articulate, alert, wearing a patch on one eye, She said, I've seen a lot of things in my life, some good, some bad. Sad to see what's happening now in Israel. And she said, I've always felt my religion in my heart. I've tried to do good for humanity. God has blessed me with my mind. I cannot see like I used to. I cannot hear like I used to. But my heart is filled with love. God blessed me with 4 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And I also saw that Thanksgiving video with that ridiculous hat on her head. Again, she spoke, and well. First of all, I'm thankful to be here. Second, I'm thankful that all of you can be here to share this with me. It's always good to have relatives surrounding you and with you. And then she took off her necklace and presented it as a gift to Samantha. Is Samantha here? Samantha. She said to her, I will always be there in your thoughts. I was touched. As I said to Ray, even as an outsider, it brought me to tears just to see her ability to share her feelings and what they were, and for you to be surrounding her at those crucial moments. So, thank you for sending them to me. Thank you for allowing me the chance to see more of your family and your simchas, your joys, not just this moment. The concluding prayer is called El Malei Rachamim, God the compassionate one. Even at times of sadness and of sorrow, we invoke God as a strength and as our support. Embedded in this prayer will also be her Hebrew name, Brundel Bat Yosel Vilea, our parents. And I ask all those who are comfortable to please stand as I recite this prayer in her honor. El Malei Rachamim, Shochem B'Maromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'Malot Kedoshim Toharim, Kezohar HaRakia Mashirim, Et Nishmat Brundel Bat Yosel Vilea, Shalcha L'Olama, Began Eden Tehei Menuchata, Ana, Ba'al HaRachamim, Hasireha B'Seter Knapecha L'Olamim, Utzror B'Sror Chayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavav Nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant, please, perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Bernice Matz Brundel, the daughter of Yosel and Leah, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is her portion. May she rest in the tranquility of shalom, of peace. And I ask you all now to please be seated. The interment will take place tomorrow at Mount Lebanon at 11 a.m. There also will be a Shiva in Ventnor at her home from 4:30 to 6:30, again on Tuesday. And any potential memorial donations are requested to be sent to either Hadassah, where she was a past president, or the Holy Redeemer Hospice. There is lunch afterwards. At the Legacy Club. Across the street, it used to be the Woodcrest Country Club. It's now, and you can go out this road and at the left, and just short little distance, there's a big driveway into the country club. You're invited to lunch. Thank you. Adonai mi agurbo helecha, mi yishkon bahar kodshecha. Olet tamid b'poel tzedek, v'dover emet lavro, lo ragal al shono, lo asal le'ehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Mizeh be'inav nim'at, ואת ירא אדוני יכבד, משפל הרע לא ימיר, כספו לא נתן בנשק, ושלחי על נפשי לא לקח, עושה אלה, ריבות